I'm just gonna drag the camera there around so that I say hi and wave.
Oh,
you see yourself
okay.
now, okay? So they're gonna see you. They're listening to you through the speakers in the class.
Yeah.
And our mic is only in one computer, so if you don't hear well the questions or something like that, just ask them to speak louder.
Okay.
Okay, because I mean, we're gonna try to be as quiet as possible so you can listen to the questions, but sometimes it's difficult. Have a better outcome, not a microphone. So who is group one? I'm just trying to turn the camera so you see who is asking you what.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Speak loud, louder.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're group one, and our topic is about CCA. Our first question is, the CCA hosts a variety of exhibitions, events, scholarships, studies, etc. Which medium is most beneficial for the CCA's personal interest?
Sorry, I think I should get.
Just get closer if you want.
No, or I should hubiera sounds auriculares.
Some.
Maybe otherwise, I think I will hear better if I have headphones. Can you hold on a second?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. Hold on.
Should I go through all of the numbers?
Or ask him if he wants to answer one by one, or
Okay.
depends on the questions that you have. He may want to respond one by one or just.
Well, does he have the list of questions himself?
Yeah, but I sent it to him this morning because I was waiting for some of the questions. No blue west. No, but I mean he has it, but anyway. I don't know if he had time to bring it because I just sent it to him like when we started the seminar class. He has the extended version, but I told him, don't worry, I shut it down so he doesn't know which ones are you going to ask, right? Which versions of that. So the rest is that just speak louder.
I couldn't find it, so I'll just.
Okay, we're gonna. Albert, one question. I didn't introduce you to the seminar content, but I mean, I don't know if you had time to see the brief or to read the brief or something.
Yeah, I read it very quickly. So actually,
just give me like 2 minutes. I mean, basically, what we are doing is we are doing a seminar with Sarah. Sarah may come like in 10 or 15 minutes. She was in a meeting, so she may be late. But basically, we are like doing a research on how architecture becomes public.
Yeah.
It's a very broad field, and it's also like an excuse because we have many faculty doing proposals for this coming Venice Biennale. And also, Sarah is involved, very much involved, or in charge, I would say, of a biennale that they want to open in Chicago.
Yeah.
So, because of the context, we thought that it was a kind of an interesting kind of opportunity to discuss how architecture becomes public in general, but also very much focus on the biennale as a format that has to be constantly rethought, and it's always under crisis. So, how the structure is set up in three, of the seminar is set up in three kind of stages. The first one is purely research, is where we are now, where we are basically looking at existing, mainly exhibition structures, biennales experiences, and then publications as well, or other venues of, and now, of course, all the digital territory has come in with a lot of also power. And then we are like discussing with people that has a lot of experience and expertise on different kind of formats of architecture becoming public somehow. In that context, we were discussing last week with Ramon and Ricardo, the publishers, and then we are discussing with you, and we're going to have other guests that have been involved in biennales organizations or exhibitions or different kind of, yeah. That basically are like thinkers and professionals about how architecture can become more public. And then the second part will be like a very short one where they take a position or make a statement about what should be like an interesting structure for a biennale today in general. And the last part will be that they will be develop a proposal for Chicago 2015. And we are working in groups, so there are like 4 groups, and they will be developing 4 proposals for Chicago. That's the kind of the context of the seminar.
Very good.
And so today is our third week or something like that. We just started. Okay, so we are like trying to get like a broader comprehension of what has been happening or how different institutions are dealing with that same question in its own territory, or sometimes it's more like international context, sometimes it's more like contextual to specific economies or cultural like locations. Okay. So okay, so now we're gonna go to the questions. I mean, if you want to get closer to the mic, or if you want to just speak very loud.
Okay.
No, let's try again. I turned the volume up, so I hope it will go.
Okay.
Okay, so our group has 5 questions about CCA. Is it okay if I ask you one by one?
Yes.
Okay, so the first question is, the CCA hosts a variety of exhibitions, events, and scholarship studies. Which medium is most beneficial for the CCA's personal interest and expansion? And is the CCA considered an exhibition? The CCA Garden, I'm sorry.
Okay, so which medium is the most interesting, or yeah, for the CCA as a way to communicate the work about the garden? Well, yeah, the CCA is a combination of several things. I think it's mainly a research center, and exhibitions are an output of that research, or we try to make it that way. So I think we have to make a very clear distinction between the CCA and many other museums. That has to do with how it relates to the local context. So how does it relate? How it relates to Montreal, or Quebec, or Canada, or Northeast North America. So the CCA has a small local following, but a big international following through the website, its publications, etc. So I think our exhibitions are not so much intended as an experience space or performance space, so much focused on the public, but I think there are more ways to show the results of the research that also is manifested through publications, and that includes what we do on the website. So in terms of what is the most interesting format for us, I think it's a combination of them. The research is usually at the base of what we do. The exhibition program is an engine for that. Publications until now have had a very direct link with exhibitions. So any book published by the CCA has always been connected to an exhibition. Right now we're starting to make that distinction, that link less automatic. So yeah, in terms of the public relevance of what we do, I think publications end up having more of an impact, a longer life, and exhibitions are, in a way, helping to construct the image of the project, a certain myth maybe also in the project. But in the end, the amount of people that experience that exhibition is very limited. I don't know if this answers the question.
The second question is, since CCA is a study center open to the public, how do you think education contributes to the CCA?
The study center is not really open to the public. I mean, the CCA is open to the public and has a collection that can be accessed by the public by appointment. The study center as such is actually a research center with scholars that are selected to come to the CCA. So they're either approached or they submit a proposal. And we select the scholars that come here. So I think well, education. I think basically we understand education as how we translate that work to the public. So this, this can be found in programs, but also our Thursday lecture programs. So it's more education. I think it's more understood as a way to create an awareness of the issues that are relevant for us.
What role do you think the exhibitions of the CCA had in the research of design and architecture problems?
Sorry, again?
What role do you think the exhibitions of the CCA had in the research of design and architecture problems?
If I understood correctly, you're asking about how these exhibitions are relevant to practice, you know?
Yes, basically.
I think that, well, that is actually a very relevant question with regard to what defines the program of the CCA. I think it's not always the case, but we try to work to research on issues and to discuss issues that we think are of relevance today. So in that sense, our program has a very contemporary focus. I don't know if you know, for instance, the exhibition Imperfect Health. So we do. I've been here only for a year and a half, but I think there's a very interesting history of thematic exhibitions before my arrival here that try to highlight issues that are maybe not being discussed necessarily, but that we feel are that there's an urgency to discuss them. So by putting together an exhibition on health, the CCA launched like a long period of research done in-house by the curatorial team, and then this is presented to the public and also to the publication, which is a wider audience. So we're kind of highlighting a problem that maybe other people can see, but we think is crucial to look at.
At CCA, it is obvious that publication and exhibition divisions are linked. Does one drive the other's themes?
Yeah, so this, I briefly touched upon this earlier, as the publications division that I'm heading now is a new thing, or actually it's something that did not exist for about 10 years. So the CCA did have from the beginning a publications department that was dismantled around 2003 or so. And since then, publications were part of the programs or exhibitions team. They were managed by the same people that did research and that coordinated the exhibitions. I still think that the relationship between publications and exhibitions is a very, very interesting part of the work that I have to do here, that my team has to do, because I think these are two ways to present, discuss, to our research. But since given that the CCA is much more than an exhibition space, Also, our publishing program becomes, or has to become, much more than something linked to the exhibitions. So, for instance, there's a research division also in the CCA now that was founded a year ago. Again, research used to be done in the exhibitions department. Now the fact that we have a research division allows for more transversal work. More transversal research that will not only feed the exhibitions but other things. We just launched a research program on culture in the UK after World War II, between 1945 and 1975. This, we're not thinking of this as an exhibition. It might become an exhibition, but we're not interested in the exhibition format right now. We're interested in the seminar format and in the publication format. So that's an example of how publications and exhibitions are not necessarily linked anymore. I think also there's a need in the publications department to communicate a certain way of doing things at the CCA. So you were asking how we decide on an exhibition. So there's a certain way of curating and presenting work that I think would be very interesting also to publish.
Okay, you have one more?
How does the study center at CCA affect the ways in which publications are researched?
Yeah, as I was saying, I think this will happen more and more. So the study center, until about 1 year ago, was only, was understood since the foundation of the CCA as a resource that was offered to scholars worldwide to come here and explore our collection, do research, and then these scholars with that research led the CCA and eventually published their work somewhere else. Now the research center, besides still through the study center, besides fulfilling that original function, as I said, is also becoming more, is developing its own voice, let's say, and becomes an output that of the research that we want to do at CCA. And also so you could say that the research division or the study center is, or the publications are instrumental for them, but also that research could be instrumental for publications as the research department evolves, so that in the same way that research will be instrumental for the exhibitions of the CCA, it will be instrumental for the books.
We're going to move forward to another group. So we're going to change a little bit the content of the questions now. So we have to group two. Please, speaker.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We've got a couple questions focusing on curating and publishing. They're kind of similar to the others before. But I'm going to go ahead and start. How do you feel about the relationship between publishing and curating an exhibition in terms of how it is also another form of performing architecture? As in, how does that also how does that work with architecture? I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense. I mean, I think both exhibitions and publications can be understood as a form of practice. And I think the work, probably if you had this conversation with Van Hollen and Ricardo last week, this came up during the conversation. It was very much part of the work we did at the MACRA. And I think clearly at the CCA it's also like that. So the director of the CCA and the chief curator now, Giovanna Borazzi, are not architects architectural historians or the architects who have had a strong relationship or an involvement in practice. And I think that for them, curating an exhibition or launching a research program or for me publishing a book is really a way to have a voice and an influence in practice. The difference between exhibitions and publications, I don't know, I think actually there's less and less of a difference. I think as publications allow you to experience material in more complex ways than in the past. So I think we're about to launch a new series of small ebooks linked to our archaeology of the digital series of exhibitions. And I find it very, very interesting to see how the drawings or the images that we put in the book, were part of the print publication, that it's very heavy, traditional, it looks more or less like an art book. In the ebook, you have a very intimate experience, very close experience with these files. You're able to zoom in and really experience them in ways that those print publications never allowed you to. So in that sense, the spatial experience of an exhibition does not, it's not the same as the spatial experience of a book, but I think the experience of the material becomes more and more similar. So I think that's, as I said in the beginning, the number of visitors for our exhibitions is quite small, but if we're able to reach a wide audience with our publications, I think that the experience of the locals and those that will access the publications could become more and more the same.
Okay. That kind of links with our next question on making architecture more public. Do you feel that the electronic forms and the more complex forms of publication are kind of helping basically spreading exhibition as basically the people that can't attend exhibitions, that the new forms of publication are a way of extending the exhibition a lot better than traditional print media, I guess? Yeah,
well, sometimes also print media gives it's clear that the speed or the way in which you view an exhibition and the way in which you read a book is very different. So a book like the one I just showed you on the archaeology of the digital exhibition that we did last spring allows you to really spend hours, on each page and read, and something you cannot do in an exhibition. So in a certain sense, you can get a lot more out of the material itself. There's something, as I said, the spatial experience of the exhibition, how you present the material, the spatial sequence you create, that will for sure be different from the one in the print publication. But there's also a value in the print publications for certain type of material. So, it's true that with electronic media, but also with video, you can replicate some components of that spatial experience that maybe were not possible with print.
Okay. And next is more about publishing, curating architecture, what are the potential difficulties of architects curating architecture? How do you select the topic, and how does the CCA specifically deal with that, I guess? Like what topics to curate or publish or do research on?
Yeah, but you also, the first part of the question was what are the difficulties of architects curating? Was that it?
Of architects curating architecture or just curating architecture in general, yeah.
Okay. Well, I think this relationship with contemporary issues that affect practice, being the focus of the CCA, in a way we tend to work with architects curating exhibitions when they're not created in-house. But also, I mean, we do also have exhibitions curated by architectural historians. I don't remember right now exhibitions curated by people in other fields, but I'm sure there are some examples in CCA history. The selection of the themes, I briefly, I think I covered that in the beginning with this sense of urgency of issues today. And in a way, the difficulties with working with architects is, I think it's the expectations that people might have of an architectural exhibition or publication might not be fulfilled. So it was very interesting last spring with this exhibition curated by Greg Lynn, which is an ongoing series. We're going to have another one, a second installment, let's say, this May, and another one in 2015. The biggest criticism we received was that there was no thesis. There was no, basically we were presenting, we were revealing pieces of an archaeology of how digital technologies were developed and implemented in the architect's office without making from that like a historical reading of, well, and this then makes that, or because of that, then this. But I think that is another question. Maybe that is part of what the publication could do. When Greg Lynn curates the show, it's really a way to, in this case, to bring to light a moment that from the point of view of practice, we should understand, because architecture is not the same since then. But then the historians will come and will make readings and might speculate on the implications of that.
We have a few more questions on that. I guess, did you guys, or was Greg Lynn invited to do an exhibition, or was that something, is that usually how that works, that you invite them, or, sorry, trying to morph this question, I guess. Does the process change for lesser known architects?
No, yeah, he was asked to do this because there was also a relationship between CCA and Greg Lynn. So there's work of Greg Lynn in the collection, and he was part of a previous exhibition. There was a seminar done by the CCA in 2005, I think, called Devices of Design, that already addressed the issue of digital tools in architecture. So there was an interest of the CCA, and the project was, this is probably the most complex project that we've been dealing with recently, because it's an exhibition project, but it's also an acquisition project. So it's about how the CCA can build a collection of digital architecture how the CCA can develop expertise in what it means to collect, archive, and give access to digital material, so to born digital projects, to digital files. And this is an issue that many institutions are struggling with, and a way for us to do this is by inviting an architect, a practitioner, someone who's dealing with these issues also in his practice, and someone who has a history of collaborations, teaching, so a rich experience of the period that we are studying, and asking him to help us find which projects would be seminal, would be relevant in this discussion, and try to collect them. So actually, by displaying these projects, we're asking the architects also to donate this material, and in a way we were experimenting with this material on how to collect, archive, and give access to the researchers that come to the CCA to develop this.
Well, that ties in with our last question. When you are looking for things for an exhibition, is there a certain type of work that's desired, or does it really just depend on the project? Like, in terms of, like, is it mostly drawings or models or that type of thing?
Yeah, I think this is also, in general, the CCA as a research center is interested in understanding any material in its context. So if you look at the collection of the CCA, it's a research collection in the sense that we're not selecting a final result or a beautiful product or the more artistic expression in the architect's sketches, but we're trying to collect everything around to document the production and the process of that project. So the sketch will be as relevant as an email sent to someone, or as early working models and the final presentation drawing. So we really need the whole spectrum to be able to understand things. And so also in the material that is exhibited, we try to reflect that. So this exhibition on archaeological digital tried to document the whole process of the generation of these projects.
Okay, so I'm going to be shifting now to our third group. Here they are.
Hey.
So they're going to introduce themselves and then torture you with 5 more questions.
Hi, we're group 3.
Hi, group.
So we're going to be asking questions about curating and publishing. So you explained to us the relationship between publishing and exhibitions.
A little bit.
No.
You're right, we just talked about that. So I lied. We're going to be talking about biennales, and you have had curation. Is that word? Yes.
You have had curatorial experience and explored cultural and architectural practice in relation with each other. Do you find it necessary to consider cultural importance in biennales? Is there any other aspect that is equally important? Like, for example, in the Venice Biennale, how they have the national pavilions, like what type of, what do you think it's necessary to explore culture in biennales if you think that is an important factor in the exhibition?
I just was able to understand this last part about the beginning. I don't know if I should just add.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, would say like how architecture relates to culture and how it's displayed in biennales. Could you talk about that relationship and what do you think is the most important part with exhibiting this type of relationship in the biennale?
I don't know, I'm afraid I don't really understand, but let's say, I mean, the biennales biennales are very much about being there. Yeah. It's about bringing people to one place. And there's a strong relationship, or at least, I mean, biennales such as Venice or Triennale like the last Lisbon Triennale, etc. There's a strong connection with the place and with people visiting the place. So in a way, they have to become an attraction, like something that people will want to go and see, a show. And they have to, in a way, they end up also having to develop a relationship with the local context, with the site, also to differentiate themselves from other biennales. So there are more and more, and so how do you deal with that? So you address local issues, or you avoid addressing local issues, and that's another way of creating a statement. So basically, I think, I have little experience in biennales, you say, so I don't know how I can answer that. But I think biennales are, rather than a space for research, like an exhibition or publication could be, there are more statements and highlight the relationship of that statement with the city or the space in which they are presented.
Okay. Do you feel like other exhibitions around the world, specifically biennales, work along the same grain of public impact that the CCA programs do? Do you think that they're effective in engaging a wider audience that's more public outside of just architects?
I don't think any of these manifestations, or a biennale, or an exhibition on the CCA, or a publication really is very relevant outside of your community. And I think this is something that we always hope for, but it's, I think there's language and like a field of interests that can be easily shared among architects, but it's difficult to share with other disciplines. And this is something we're struggling with very much here at the CCA with the research division. Now, like the Melon project I mentioned, the research project I mentioned, culture in the UK between 1945 and 1975, we're trying to attract scholars from other disciplines, from other fields, because we're interested in understanding how architecture related to the creation of the welfare state and the development of pop culture and wider issues outside of architecture during that period. I got lost, sorry.
Does the anticipation and explosion of a bi-yearly event create different effects than an ongoing open program? How do you feel, or what do you do to keep the research and exhibitions fresh as possible?
Could you repeat, sorry?
What do you do to keep to help keep the research as fresh as possible?
The research in Biennale, or?
Well, the work.
Yeah, no, basically, I think that the question deals with the distinction between like something that happens every 2 years versus something that is like an ongoing research. That is so there's a kind of a temporal difference.
Yeah.
And what will be the difference of approach to the kind of the role of the topic that is selected in each case, for example? No?
Yes. Okay. Well, I think it has to do with this statement. Biennale is making polemic statements. I think that would be I mean, it's a moment in which you bring people together and you try to produce also an X-ray of the production of architecture today. But you have to make a statement out of that. So I think that I find it very difficult when there are more and more biennales happening simultaneously to produce all these series of statements that will try to condense issues that are of relevance for architecture today. And also the system by which these biennales happen, which is, separate exhibitions and no real space for discussion, or even coexistence beyond the visitor going from one exhibition to the other, is very different from what you do with an exhibition or publication, where you kind of, even if in the end you also are dealing with urgency, there's, I don't know, I think there's a fragmentation of information, of experience in the Biennale that is completely different from that of a research project, an exhibition, or publication. So I think you have to understand then how you deal with that fragmentation, what you make out of it. Biennales are collective works that aren't really one, but they're really they materialize as a constellation of things, much more than a publication or an exhibition that will try to create one linear narrative or one unified narrative. So that unified narrative, I think, is something you cannot effectively produce in Biennale. So you have to look for other approaches, other ways of organizing things, other systems.
Okay, and that leads to what do you think that biennials receive enough attention and documentation on books, publications, magazines, newspapers, or even the internet? Could there be a better way to document them and share the messages and discoveries to the greater public outside of just the exhibitions?
I think the question would be, how relevant would it be to document them and give more visibility to them? So if biennales are more, if they're conceived as what I have seen in the Venice Biennale, etc., where it's very much about the experience of this constellation of things, and then you draw your conclusions in a way. What is the, can you capture that experience, or what is the point? So I think there's a depth of reading in exhibitions, of these more coherent narratives that an institution can develop autonomously, as opposed to the complex combination of things in biennales. That, I don't think this question that you're asking is that relevant? Because I think biennales are made to experience them and have a very short life. Of course, there's a historical interest in biennales, so I mean, it is crucial to be able to go back to what was presented in Venice in 2000, 1990, etc., to understand what architecture was dealing with at the time. But this you can do by simply collecting the posters that were down at the time, photographs of the installations. So it's more, for me, it's an interest in historical archiving, but not so much in making that experience of the Biennale or the content of the Biennale widely disseminated.
So we have to move to the last one because we're again running out of time, I think. So we have a last set of questions by Group 4 and Marco that is on the. We are video recording that, Albert. It's too late to tell you, but I mean.
I was sure you were going to do it.
Yeah. But okay, so we're gonna have the last set.
All right, we're Group 4. Our questions are about audience. I think you kind of hit on most of these, so I'm going to ask you like a series of 3 questions, and then if there's any points you want to hit on or just kind of discuss audience in general about the CCA that we haven't discussed yet, feel free to do that. What kinds of people are usually present for the education and public engagement programs? Do you feel like this is a real representation of the public, or is it kind of specialized groups? Do you find it difficult to attract the general public as opposed to these specialized audiences? And earlier you mentioned having both global and local audience. Is there a difference in how you communicate between these 2 audiences? Not so much in terms of the medium, but rather content?
Okay, so the local audience, so the people that come to our programs, exhibitions, public programs, are mostly, I would say, the young architecture community in Montreal, and mostly students. And I think this is very similar to any other institution like this in other places. So if you look at the NAI in Rotterdam or other institutions like this, it's usually audience that will be more active, or present, interested in learning. Of course, there's also an educational program, so programs aimed at schools, children, families. This is a very small component of what we do here. So there is that sort of program for wider audiences that have that are not specialized in architecture, that takes place mostly in the weekends. But this is really very, very small. The difference between local and international audience, I don't think there is a big difference. I think there's a difference in the types of audiences for the different components of the CCA or the different types of things we do here. So this young architecture community will be interested also, I think, in our publications and maybe in the videos that we post on our website. But there will be also a significant group of scholars, so much older people, people that have teaching positions mainly in architecture schools, that will be interested in the holdings of the CCA. So not so much what we are doing with them, but what is in our vaults, what the foundations of the CCA are, so that they can do something with them. I think we try to communicate with the two audiences. But I would say that maybe our focus would be more on the young architecture community, because that's when I mentioned that we're interested also in addressing or tackling issues that we feel are urgent to study today and that we think are very relevant for practice. These are the people that will be practicing, that are starting to practice, so that's probably where the conversation can be more productive. There's, with, let's say, more established professionals, yes, of course, those are also important, an important audience for us. The problem is often the level of attention that these people can give, and it's, you know, when you want to enter in a conversation with architects in their 40s or 50s, it's always more difficult because, yeah, their own struggles and their own worlds.
Have you ever found yourself surprised by who you found to be watching your work, who's been following you? Someone from outside architecture, or because you mentioned that you're looking to attract scholars from other fields. So what's caught you off guard? What have you found exciting that someone's been following you and giving feedback?
Yeah, as I said, I think we haven't been very successful yet, but we do have some, like, there's an interesting university right next door from the CCA. It's Concordia University, that does not have an architecture program. But we have quite a few people in their anthropology studies or visual studies programs that follow what we do at CCA. And I think it's very interesting when they attend our lectures, the type of questions that they ask, because it's clearly bringing new perspectives that are not that were not considered by us. I cannot really give any specific examples, but it's clear that we cannot operate in a bubble. That when you have intelligent people in other fields that can understand what you're trying to do and offer insights from other fields, then your discourse was enriched. So I don't have more elaborate answer to that.
And so that's who surprised you. Who are you actually trying to attract from outside architecture? A scholar?
So, yeah, in this specific program that I mentioned, we're looking, we would like to attract actually, yeah, I don't know, it's very hard. Actually, we would love to have a research program, so to have a set of researchers doing work with CCA who none of them would be architects. I mean, ideally, this program on UK between the 1940s and 1970s, we would love to have people working with us that would give us an insight into how architecture was instrumental in developing the public health system, for instance, in the UK, or how pop culture was appropriated by architecture and the other way around, how architecture was kind of became part of this a more accessible cultural production at the time. I don't know, we don't have, there's no specific, I mean, I would say that we're more interested in scientists than in philosophers. We're more interested in people that were, in a way, had a practice that was part of the production of that world, of the production of UK in the 1950s, 60s, etc., rather than people who were reading or interpreting that situation. So it's more a direct experience of the making of things, of practice, of the creation of the society, than the interpretation of that work.
I actually have one more question. It's from a previous topic. You mentioned how like digital distribution can be an expansion of hard print. What advantage does print still have, if any?
Print has a presence that digital publications do not have. I don't know what the future will be, but at this point, I think even the visibility of the thing, you know, when you have an ebook in your phone or your tablet, is a completely different thing from having a book on your shelf. And the way you interact with that form of publication is also very different. So with these ebooks that we are going to launch in the coming weeks, we're thinking of them as very light publications that could be like, I mean, we're creating we're discussing them here in house with relation to music discs. So the relationship between a long play and a single. In a way, we're thinking of these ebooks as singles, and maybe the print publication will be more of a long play, where there's a sequence of songs and a narrative and kind of you require time to go through it. The single is one story. It's packaged as a fast thing, and so it's light, and therefore I think the life of these e-publications will be very short. Developing simultaneously a concept for a print publication that will, in addition to the content of the ebook, I mean, actually the content will not replicate that of the ebook, but we're trying to address the context, bring different voices, will be a much more complex organization.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Albert, I think we're gonna stop it here. So I'm gonna leave you go back to your work.
Okay. Would you like to answer questions by email? Are there things that you think were not covered?
No, I think that I think that the questions were like fully covered. I think that there is something left from students, but I mean, like in any case, maybe we can have views from you a little bit more later in the semester. If there are like or incoming questions, or maybe if students will want to share with you their work, so you can give them some feedback. But we'll find a way so it's not too disturbing for you. Again, thanks very much for your time and your knowledge sharing with us. And we hope we talk again soon.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Oh.
Bye. Have a nice place.